An underrated gem, Doctor Sleep. Directed by Mike Flanagan, Doctor Sleep is a movie that delivers on its promise. A direct sequel to the Stanley Kubrick The Shining, as well as being a faithful adaptation to the book. This movie is one of the best sequels of all time and it absolutely got overlooked, no pun intended, when it hit theaters. There is an original cut and an extended cut of this film. In the extended cut, there is 30 minutes longer and it has also chapters. I prefer the extended cut, personally. The film continues the story of Danny Torrance, who is still recovering from the events of the Overlook Hotel with his mother, Wendy, that took place in 1980. His mother, Wendy, is still shaken and traumatized by the experience, and they are still trying to move on together. Danny grows up and meets a young woman called Abra, who learns about a group of murderers that are called the True Knot. Together, Danny and Abra team up in order to stop the True Knot once and for all. Mike Flanagan directs this movie with absolute love and care. You can tell that he's a fan of the Kubrick film and the story by Stephen King. And while there are some changes here and there from the book to the screen, you can tell that he is an absolute fan and he cares a lot about the source material. It's already an impossible task to present a satisfying sequel to Kubrick's masterpiece, and in my opinion, this film absolutely delivers. We start this film off and introduce the True Knot, and the theme music is played as the opening in the Kubrick film. Rose the Hat, played marvelously by Rebecca Ferguson, is one of King's most iconic villains. The True Knot are a supernatural force that want to feed on the Shining, which they call steam. They kidnap kids and they torture them so that they can live longer. Not forever, but longer. Rose the Hat is the leader and she is a terrifying human being. Snakebite Andy is someone new that they recruit at the beginning of the film. She can put people to sleep. Grandpa Flick is really old as the Roman Empire, they say. Crow Daddy is Rose's right-hand man and lover. The others are also very old and all monsters. She kidnaps a little girl that shines with her family, and they take her steam, and they disappear while the mother searches for their young daughter. We are then introduced to young Danny and Wendy, who are played by different actors, which I thought was the best move that the studio could have done. They didn't de-age them. They actually recasted their roles, which I think Hollywood should do more of this nowadays. They could have decided to de-age them, but they didn't here. I thought that just recasting them was the perfect choice. Alex Esoy is absolutely wonderful as and Wendy. She really feels like she is young Shelley Duvall. I wish we got to see more of her, in fact, because she does a great job as a loving and caring mother who just wants the best for her child. Roger Del Foy plays the young version of Danny, and he does a really great job as well. Carl Lumbly stars as Dick Halloran and is also really good as the cook, who was played by Scatman Crothers. All of these new actors, they really do a good job of getting into their characters, and they don't feel like they're overshadowing the previous people that played them, but they also do a good job of honoring what came before them. In the opening of this film, where we see how young Danny is dealing with the aftermath of what happened and is haunted by its ghost, is absolutely well done. They couldn't have just made a better opening, in my opinion. The hotel has been locked up and boarded, and the ghosts want to feed off Danny since they are no longer getting any steam. Danny keeps seeing the dead woman from the bathroom and meets with the dead ghost of Halloran on a park bench. Halloran tells him that in order to keep the ghost away, that he needs to study a lockbox and locks them inside when he sees them. Danny goes to the bathroom and then locks the dead woman in the lockbox. He locks the dead woman from the room 237, which she appears to him constantly, and then he just locks her up. Like it's almost like she's not afraid of the ghost anymore. I mean, his father did come after him with an axe, so like he's like, "Fuck you, ghosts." In 2011, Danny is an alcoholic and is drinking to forget his past. He gets into bar fights and takes drugs with a stranger, and he finds out that she has a child, and while she's taking her money. Uh, Dick Halloran appears to him right then, but he doesn't listen. He still takes the money and wants to run. He takes a bus and goes to New Hampshire, where he meets a kind man named Billy that offers him a job at a nursery and at a place called Tiny Town. He also heads him a place, and Danny starts to join the AA meetings and becomes sober. Billy is like a terrific friend. He helps Danny recover. He gives him a home. He gives him a job. I mean, he's absolutely a wonderful friend, and I really like the actor that plays him too. Uh, and Since Danny becomes an orderly, and I think this is one of the best parts of the movie, Danny becomes Doctor Sleep, which is the title of the film, and he helps the dying patients pass through the other side, and they die peacefully. Ewan McGregor is wonderful in these scenes. As he ends in the entire movie, I think Ewan McGregor is one of my favorite actors, and here he's just absolutely wonderful as Danny. I think he shines in these scenes. He's absolutely a terrific actor. In the meantime, a young girl called Abra Stone has shining powers of her own, but is even more powerful than Danny. She can do several tricks that terrifies her parents, like playing the piano using her powers and elevating the spoons on the kitchen roof. They are terrified of their daughter, but still try to love and care for her the best way they can. I really like the portrayal of the parents in this movie. They're not like dumb, or they're not like, we don't hate them at all. They just want the best for their daughter, even though she has powers that they don't understand. Abra gets in touch with Dan using the help of his blackboard, and the two form a bond. 8 years later, Danny is now sober. The True Knot are hungry since they don't have a lot of steam, and they can't find it as much as they used to. Danny is doing quite well for himself, and this is just when like most of the plot comes in focus. When the True Knot, they kidnap a child called Bradley, and he's brutally murdered by them. They torture him to death and eat their steam. Fun fact: you actually see Danny Lloyd in the scene, the original actor that plays Danny in The Shining, who plays one of the dads in the stand watching the baseball game that Bradley plays in. He even gets a few lines with the school. I only found this out like a few weeks ago. I didn't even know that Danny Lloyd was actually in the film. Abra sees the murder and tells Danny. The two then meet on a park bench, and Abra asks for Dan's help. But however, Dan refuses to help Abra. He is then visited by the ghost of Halloran, who tells him that he still has a debt to pay and that he grew up fine. Then Dan decides to tell his friend Billy about the situation, and Billy hesitantly agrees to go and find the dead body of the body of the dead baseball boy. They dig him up, and Billy tells Dan about the time he went hunting deer this one summer. He was checking him for days, shot him, but the deer still ran away. Billy figured the deer wouldn't last long. Then the deer vanished. He then took a different spot days later and found the dead buck near a tree trunk, dead for days. He tells Dan that this is the same kind of smell that he's smelling right now. They find the dead boy, buried not even 6 feet deep, and they decide to head to Abra's parents to warn them. They tell Abra's father, who doesn't believe them at first, but Abra shows him everything. His father, trembling, takes a glass of beer, and they hatch a plan together to kill the True Knot. Abra projects herself in the forest, but she But she ends up not actually being present when the true knot arrives. Dan and Billy shoot most of them with their shotguns. They take Billy's shotgun that he hunts with. However, just before dying, Snakebite Andy, who is one of the True Knot members, she actually can mind control people, forces Billy to shoot himself. She dies shortly after. Abra tells Dan that she doesn't see the crow, and then she gets kidnapped. Crow Daddy drugs Abra, kills her dad, and takes her in the van. He drives away, and Dan, feeling like he has failed, almost turns to booze, but doesn't. This speaks volumes about how much his character has changed. He takes control of Abra with her permission, and makes Crow Daddy crash the vehicle. And since he was wearing a belt, his death comes instantly. Dan goes to get Abra and takes her to the hotel since he believes that it can be dangerous for Rose the Hat also. The Overlook Hotel is full of dead ghosts, dead spirits, and Danny thinks that it's the best way to defeat the villain here this time around. I mean, it's a terrifying place for him to go to, but he still goes, which also shows how courageous he has become. Dan tells her sorry about her dad, and she tells him sorry about his friend. They drive all the way to the Overlook, and this is where the film starts to get a bit into much nostalgia territory for some, but it's earned, in my opinion. I can understand how it can bother some people, but it didn't bother me because the build-up was so good. It doesn't really matter how much of the hotel we see again, and how much moments are recreated, especially in the extended cut. We see the same shots of the island and the water, and then we arrive to the Overlook. Danny must awaken the hotel. He goes to the boiler room, and then goes to the old room, the gold room, and visits the bathroom, and the old to their old bedroom. And he visits the bathroom and sees the hole in the wall that his father made with the axe. He goes down to the gold room and meets a man who says that he's Lloyd, but he's actually Dan's father, who became part of the Overlook. I think this scene only plays in the extended cut. They did add the actor that portrayed the his version of Jack Nicholson in the original cut. I think I would have preferred to have seen this moment out of the film, personally, because Jack Nicholson's performance is so iconic, and I don't think that maybe I don't think you had to recast him. You could have just used Lloyd and it would have made the same effect. And I don't feel like their conversation was so important that you had that it had to make the cut. We also didn't need to go back in the red bathroom in the extended cut, in my opinion. It's a cool scene for sure, but it doesn't really add anything to the story compared to the original scene where Jack met Grady. I think that here, this scene was mostly for nostalgia purposes, and I feel like it would have been better out. We didn't need to see this place again with the same outcome, basically. Abra tells Dan that Rose arrives. She visits the Overlook and feels the ghostly presences of the hotel. She then meets Dan and Abra and feels Dan shining for the first time. Abra projects Rose into the labyrinth, and Abra slices at her legs. Rose blocks them out of her mind and gets physical with Dan at the top of the famous staircase. The same staircase that Jack was about to attack Wendy, but she hit him with a baseball bat. Rose takes the upper hand and wounds Dan, but Dan is able to defeat her by unlocking the ghost that he has trapped in his mind with the lockbox. The ghosts feed on Rose and kill her, but then they turn to Danny and he becomes part of the hotel, just like his father. This is where the movie differs a lot from the book. Danny goes after the Abra, but Abra manages to turn him into the good side for a few moments. She flees and he gets to the boiler room, which is about to explode. This moment happens in the first Shiny book where the hotel blows up and kills Jack. They did the same thing here, but with Danny, and I think that's what maybe King wanted, or maybe Mike Flanagan wanted, because they wanted to please the fans, but also please King, for since he didn't like the first movie, and which is a goddamn masterpiece. This time, Danny sacrifices himself as Abra flees, and before dying, sees his mother Wendy. The two smile at each other, and the hotel as the hotel burns in flames. I thought this moment was superbly well done. It was touching, was heartfelt, and the two actors played it wonderfully. In the book, Danny doesn't die, and he makes it out alive. Actually, this is a major difference. But I feel like Mike Flanagan decided to do this change because it was important to him, and he felt like it was right for the story. And so that's pretty much the climax of the film. Sometime later, Abra talks to the ghost, Dan, in her bedroom, and tells her to shine on, just like the John Lennon song "We All Shine On," Instant Karma, where Stephen King got his inspiration from. And Abra tells her mother that her dad is alright. She then faces the dead woman in the bathtub from room 237, presumably locking her up just like Danny did. I truly believe that this movie should have made more money in theaters. It was a worthy sequel, and I was saddened to see that we didn't get the Halloween movie, which was a planned spin-off from Doctor Sleep. But unfortunately, the movie was not as successful as it should have been. It is a truly underrated gem. This movie shines and will continue to shine on for years to come, in my opinion. It's one of my favorite movies. The Shining is in my top five favorite movies of all time, and Doctor Sleep is not far away behind. I think it's a fantastic horror movie. It's well done, well acted, superbly well directed, and yeah, I think everyone who likes horror, who likes good storytelling, should give it a go. So here's my review of The Shining, Doctor Sleep. Let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments below. See you next time.